Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Apolla's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and tonight I'm live from my new spaceship. Woo! It's pretty awesome. I've been working really hard on this for a really long time, and I am officially set up here now. I know I've said this before, but there was an issue with the sound. It was a big echo. Well, first there was an issue with the original people I was sharing a studio with. Completely, one of the people in the situation completely screwed me over of thousands of dollars. But I got a new unit, and then the second time I tried going live in this new unit, there was too much of an echo. But now, let me know, everyone. Do I sound okay? Finally, did all the soundproofing with my partner that's in the whole studio situation here. And we had to kind of put some panels around. And also, I had to build a new desk because I didn't have a control panel for my spaceship. So this is the control panel for my new spaceship that you're looking at right here. I actually am going to be getting some circuit boards and putting them on here. I'm really stoked about it. Also, I want to find some lever things or I don't know, I guess shifter things and gear things. So just looks like officially a control panel for a spaceship. But, it's kind of funny. I actually made the whole surface in the front of this desk that I got. You know how people do gold foil paper for furniture? I decided to use tin foil because I wanted my spaceship to be silver and awesome looking. So I actually put aluminum foil all around this, and then I covered it with Mod Podge, and it looks sweet, doesn't it? It totally doesn't look ghetto at all. And I thought it was kind of funny because obviously this is kind of a conspiracy theorist show, and conspiracy theorists obviously wear tinfoil hats. I used some of the extra tinfoil and I made a hat. I have it on Baby Yoda right now. Oh, his hat's a little too low. But, I can wear this. It doesn't really fit on over my headphones. Yeah, no echo. Woo! I'm glad you guys think it sounds okay. But I'll let Baby Yoda wear this for now. I'm thinking if I actually have people in my studio, which I can do now, I'll just kind of make them wear this. So if anyone wants to be a guest on my show, you have to wear the tinfoil sorting hat if you actually physically come here in person. I probably shouldn't say that because then people might not actually want to come here. I'm actually planning on having Carrie Casty from Project Camelot. She wants to do a show with me on the 22nd, but I'm thinking about asking her to actually come in person because she actually lives in the LA area. So, yeah, I'm glad everyone's saying it sounds okay. Really stoked about it. Leon here says, nice shirt, dear. Thank you so much. But, you just reminded me, I just got some new shirts made for my show. They say, I believe in humans, and they have flying saucers on them. And I'm going to put them up in my store. So I don't have them up yet, but maybe I will have those up by tomorrow. And obviously, I'll talk about that on my show Thursday, whether I will be having those on or not. On my show Thursday, so obviously, in case you guys have been kind of coming in and out of watching this, I have been doing my shows every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. So I've been pretty consistent with it. I missed one Thursday while I was traveling recently, but besides that, I'm pretty much always going live on Tuesdays and Thursdays, even if I am traveling. Unless I'm physically on a plane and I cannot go live, I really try to do my best to always go live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m. Now that I finally have this studio up and running, which has taken up all my time and energy trying to figure this out, I finally have this ready to go. My next step, and also my new Shaman Spirits collection, of course, is up online. So, that took me forever to do. But that's all good now. So now my next step is I really want to start scripting out some real legit episodes, not just this live stuff. Although I think some people tend to like the live stuff better. I mean, let me know what you think. Do you want to hear me actually script out and cover things? If I script things out, I'll kind of switch between me sitting here talking and then, clips edited in of different things while I'm voiceovering it. So thanks. I'm glad you like the spaceship. Sarah, Club Indigo, check out her music. It's really dope. But yeah, the spaceship, it's taken me forever to get together. And I'm really excited. I actually want to make a new intro for this. I mean, I have my usual intro, but for the countdown, I want to make it like I am like in my spaceship coming from outer space, and then because in the official intro for my show, it's like me as a space chick landing on the Hollywood sign. So I'm thinking I actually want to get some like stock footage where it looks like, a UFO is coming down over Earth, and then it's like hovering over the Hollywood sign. And then it's like, oh, all of a sudden, I'm the alien chick at the Hollywood sign. I'm going to do, obviously, if you don't know this, you might not know this, I actually live in Los Angeles, and I'm running my show from Hollywood. I live in the Hollywood Hills, and that's where I had been doing my show. And now I have this awesome studio that is actually literally right off Hollywood Boulevard. And kind of funny, it happens to be pretty much right across from CNN. Kind of weird, kind of funny, because like I talk crap about them a lot on my show, and they just happen to be like basically across the street from me. I also stormed CNN earlier this year doing the Save the Children protest here in Hollywood, so it's pretty funny. And sorry if I tend to look down a little, it's just because I have to have my screen down here and my camera's up here, so that I can get everything in here instead of just, my computer webcam being down here. So I'm actually planning on putting a monitor under my camera up here. So I hope it doesn't bother you guys. I have to kind of look down to see comments and things like that. But I'm glad you guys are liking the ship. I've worked so hard on this, and, I got screwed of the situation originally that I was in getting this together. And, it's just been a lot. But this is officially always going to be happening from here now. This is officially my spaceship, aka studio, and I'm officially doing it from here from now on, unless I just happen to be traveling, or if I'm just, sometimes I like literally get off a plane and go right on to a show. That happens a lot. So sometimes if that happens, I might have to go live from home, and I still have my setup there. So all good. Sorry, just reading the comments here. Someone said get your manager agent on the show. That would be interesting. My agent actually, I haven't talked to him in a minute, because I've just been so busy getting everything together in my life. But I would definitely love to have him on soon to talk with him if he'd be down to do that. But yeah, so tonight's show, I want to talk about crystals, and the reason for that being, it's kind of funny, but being on a lot of different channels as a speaker in the UFO kind of conspiracy scene, basically, like, a lot of people tend to I've noticed that a lot of people tend to make fun of women and not take them seriously in the scene, because they're like, oh, the chicks in the scene, they just come in and talk about crystals, or they're just like, all about like seeing visions. And I don't know. I just I want to make this clear that women are intuitive, and that is the superpower of women. And we do tap in and we do see things. That's why we always know everything, guys. That's why your mother always knows everything. I'm sorry, but it's true. So, I just feel like that's what women bring to the table, and I don't think it should be overlooked. And that's not to say that men aren't able to see visions and things like that too. That's totally not the case. But what I'm saying is that being intuitive is the female superpower. So that being said, now I want to move on to crystals. But before I move on to crystals, something along the lines of crystals is that I do have my new Odyssey collection available online at shamanspears.com. So let me go ahead and pull that up for you guys. Let me see here. I finally figured out how to do my screen share properly. I'm sorry if I've been annoying about that this whole time. But this is my site, shamanspears.com, and I have an amazing new collection up Kind of sucks I can't have my spears with me in the studio now. But this is the Odyssey collection. They all have silver staves. They're all filled with copper coils, crystals, magnets, and sand I collect from sacred places around the world. I'm sorry if you've heard this a million times. I have to say it for new people that come on. But basically, they're like a mix between spears and wands. So I call them shaman spears because of that. And unfortunately, because I call them shaman spears, I'm no longer able to sell them on Facebook or be a Google official Google merchant because they think that I'm trying to sell weapons. And these are not weapons, they're technology. They are for channeling energy. And it's kind of interesting because what they do is like basically they help you interface with your own energy. Scientists have found that we have naturally magnetic hematite sand in our brains, and I have hematite sand all down the middle of the crystals, or I mean the staves, because the bamboo is hollow. So I actually pack all these materials down the insides of the staves. Also, all the fur and leather on the spears is faux. No animals were harmed in the making of these. And these are the Shaman Spears minis. This is the new collection of like lower price items. And also, out of all these collections, I have been making on many of them. I've made my own organite spearheads and ends. So definitely check those out. Also, I have the organite initiation keys, necklaces, which I made myself. Also, organite brass knuckles, organite necklaces. Lots of cool things on shamanspears.com. So tonight's show, you can't call them scepters. They're basically like scepters. That's what they are. You know, it's funny, when I started making them, I actually had no idea what scepters are. And so this leads me into the topic of tonight's show. It's really interesting because, a lot of these ideas with shaman spears, as I was making them, I really kind of like channeled, like a lot kind of came to me. It's like when I was making them, I just kind of like did what I felt was right. And I noticed later that a lot of the things I was putting in them, like scientific facts, came out later. Like I mentioned earlier, I was putting naturally magnetic hematite sand inside them. I don't know why. Something just told me like, you should do this. Right after I did that, scientists start coming out with articles that hematite is found in our brains. And I forgot to mention, what my favorite thing to do with them is actually go hiking with them. So I do that pretty often. Anytime I go on a mountain anywhere, even if I travel, I always have a spear with me. And it's really fun. And they're actually very durable. They used to not be, if you were like one of my earlier customers, I didn't do so well like previously with making them super durable, but as I've been making them for about 6 years now, they are very durable now. And I mean, if you drop a crystal, if you smash a crystal on the ground, it will break because that's just what happens. But as long as you're at least decently careful with them, they definitely work very well. So on tonight's show, like I said, I want to talk about crystals and how what they're used for. Basically, a lot of scientists have said that crystals are partially alive. In a way, they're almost considered more liquid and light than actually physical, which is very strange. There's a lot of weird things about crystals, and obviously the whole healing aspect is kind of considered a pseudoscience. Like science hasn't, supposedly proven that in a lot of ways that they are used for healing. But, the way that can be, and I won't really be covering that in tonight's show, but the thing with that is that obviously quartz is used to direct consciousness and to amplify it. And the Atlanteans knew this. This was something that was very common knowledge in Atlantis. And from a lot of accounts, I've heard that the streets were actually paved in quartz, and like all the buildings had quartz inside them because quartz amplifies consciousness. That's why if you go hiking on a mountain that has a lot of quartz in it, like, up in Calabasas or something, that's where I go hiking a lot around here, and you're hiking on granite. Granite has a lot of quartz in it, and it amplifies consciousness. So that's what's really interesting about quartz. So, that's like just one thing on its own. It's like, okay, if you're if it amplifies consciousness, for one, and then you use it, you have a particular thought or intention, and you use quartz to amplify that by programming it, why could that not? You could literally tell it to do anything. You could tell it to, help you send energy to someone, because that's how it works. It amplifies whatever you program it with. So I'm going to actually go into, I don't want to get too pseudoscience on tonight's show. I just want to get into the real actual science that's come out about all these things. And then later on, I want to get into the fact that crystals may actually power spaceships. Yeah, Dragon Ride here says you can store computer programs on crystals. Exactly. So that's one of the first things I actually want to get into here. Let me make sure I pull up the right article. 1 second. Okay, first I want to talk about how crystals are actually, what they technically are first. Just like a simple sort of background with them. So let me read this article by the Calming Mind, I believe it was. Okay. So this article says, are crystals alive? Are crystals alive, and are they living organisms? The surprising truth. Ever since I've come to interest myself in the fascinating world of crystals, there's one question that has continued to haunt me. As crystals are products of nature, I wondered whether crystals are actually alive, just like trees, or are considered living organisms. It made sense to me to question whether the same goes for crystals. That is why I found this out. In order to call something a living organism, it has to be able to breathe, grow, eat, reproduce, and develop. So while crystals might not actually technically and officially be considered alive, with the knowledge we have today, they're not far away from it either. There is certainly something you won't come across much often. I personally feel like crystals definitely have some specific properties they might not yet be able to classify as alive. It's not the kind of properties we as humans generally tend to see as a form of a living being. However, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this scientific contemporary point of view will be changed in the near future. Now let's dive a little deeper into the composition and energetic abilities of crystals to find out what makes these amazing objects so very special. Do crystals have cells? As any living organism is known to consist of trillions of cells, it's fairly understandable to question whether crystals have cells as well. In the human body, cells are responsible for practicing the main functions, taking in nutrients and providing a set structure. When cells unite within the human body, they are able to create our vital organs. Also, cells are able to take copies of themselves and multiply. When it comes to crystals, however, there are some differences with regard to biological cells. A crystal is made up of an arrangement of molecules which are called units. The smallest unit within a crystal is called a unit cell. The single unit cell makes up the entire symmetry of the crystal. So while the crystal consists of a cell, it can't be compared to cells you'll find in the human body, for example. Where cells in the human body consist out of many different parts, which each their individual function, a cell you'll find in a crystal only has a singular function. Do crystals grow? Even though crystals don't exactly fit the established description of a living organism, they do actually grow. A crystal starts off very small and will grow when more atoms are automatically being added during the natural growing process. The process of crystals growing is called crystallization. Influenced by surrounding pressure and temperature, a specific type of crystal will eventually be formed. Also, the final size will depend on how far the surroundings of the crystal will allow it to grow. There are certain types of crystals that grow in mineral-rich water areas, and other types of crystals which you will find within rocks or limestone areas. Do crystals breathe? Even though they are only a few aspects away from being able to officially be declared a living organism. There's no evidence nowadays that crystals are actually able to breathe. However, there are two French geologists who have done some quite interesting research on this topic and claim to have found evidence that the rocks actually do show some breathing activity, vital breathing activity, such just at a much slower pace than normally expected. According to these two geologists, it would take a stone between 3 days to 2 weeks to take one single breath. Do crystals have auras? Crystals are known to have auras, and where crystals aren't affected by any surrounding energies, the aura will be clear. A clear aura around a crystal is a sign that the crystal is neutralized of any possible surrounding emotions or thoughts. When the crystals are confronted with a specific type energy in any form, the crystal will take on the aura color of the other entity it has crossed its path with. The fact that crystals are able to take on others' auras and energies is exactly why it is so extremely important to spiritually cleanse crystals after you've been using them. And like I said, I'm not going to get too like pseudo spiritual with these. So, there's that article. Let me stop sharing here. Okay. So, let me get into another fact here. Earlier we mentioned the different kinds of uses of crystals in technology. So that's what I want to get into next here. Let me find, okay. Just trying to look for where I had this tab. 1 second here. Yeah, yes, Jeff here says that cell phones use crystals. So that's what I'm pulling up next here. Okay, here we go. So this is from Sciencing, the magazine called Sciencing. And this article explains the industrial uses for crystals. Early civilizations used crystal sands of quartz, garnet, diamonds, and other crystals as abrasives to saw blocks of rock and stone, fashion jewelry and ornamentation, and create specialized engravings. During the end of the 19th century, science began mineral synthesis and growing crystals synthetically in the laboratory. Synthetic crystals proved to be more abrasive than other natural counterparts, being stronger, cheaper, and easier to obtain. Synthetic crystals quickly found a strong market in many industries. Diamond crystals and dust for cutting. Diamond bits were used in industrial saws and ropes for cutting stone blocks and ornamental stones. Drill bits studded with diamond crystals are now used on oil well drills. Jewelers and lapidary artisans use saws loaded with diamonds, copper labs with diamond dust, and diamond polishing powder, especially for use with hard gemstones such as jade and sapphire. Watches and semiconductors. Synthetic quartz, ruby, and sapphire are all used in the watch industry. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Like, most people just think of quartz being used, but here it's saying ruby and sapphire being used too. That's very interesting. Rolex watch glass is made of scratch-resistant, colorless synthetic sapphire. Synthetic ruby has been used for making hard bearings in watches and other mechanical instruments. Synthetic quartz crystal controls the time and operates by a silicon chip. Pure quartz sand is used to make silicon metal, a semiconductor that brought about the transistor and development of microelectronics, integrated circuits, and the silicon chip, aka what is used to power your cell phones and other smart devices. Obviously, laptops, computers, literally everything. So yes, if you were in a spaceship, you'd be using crystals for your control panel. Ruby laser. Invented in 1960, this red light beam produces an intense light with minimal divergence. It has many industrial uses. It is found in CD players and long-distance telephones, as well as in surveying and microsurgery. College professors and others find the tiny ruby laser pointer to be beneficial in their lectures. High-energy lasers can cut through steel plates and drill holes through diamonds. And I'm sure, they already have like the laser swords that are in Star Wars and Star Trek or Star Wars. They definitely already have that. There's no doubt about that. They just can't put that on the market. It's obvious they have that. I'm sure they've had that technology since like the 60s or probably earlier. The piezoelectric effect. Sorry, I don't know if I pronounced that right. Certain crystals, such as quartz, are piezoelectric. That means that when they are compressed or struck, they generate an electric charge. It works the other way as well. If you run an electric current through a piezoelectric crystal, the crystal changes shape slightly. Wow, that's wild. This property makes piezoelectric crystals useful in many applications. That's really wild. You can actually, by putting a charge into a crystal, change the shape of it. That's so insane. Quartz clocks. One of the most important uses of piezoelectricity is in quartz clocks and timers. A crystal of quartz will vibrate at a certain rate depending on its size. As the crystal vibrates back and forth, it generates electrical pulses. A quartz clock uses a small crystal cut to a precise size to keep time. A circuit called an oscillator keeps the quartz crystal vibrating by adding electricity to its pulses. The clock counts the number of pulses, and the quartz crystal makes and uses that as a basis for measuring seconds, minutes, and hours. Acoustic uses. Piezoelectric devices can be used both to capture sound and to produce it. Piezoelectric pickups are commonly used for folk guitars and other acoustic instruments. A piezo pickup is a strip of piezoelectric material connected to two wires. The pickup is attached to the instrument, and when the instrument is played, the sound makes it vibrate. These vibrations create an electrical current in the piezo pickup, which can be recorded or amplified as sound. A piezo speaker works in the opposite way. Electricity flows into a sheet of piezoelectric material, making it bend back and forth. This creates pressure waves in the air, which we hear as sound. Piezo lighters. One of the most visible applications of piezoelectricity is a piezo lighter. Pretty much any lighter with a push button is powered by piezoelectricity. When you push the button, it makes a small spring-powered hammer rise off the surface of the piezo crystal. When the hammer reaches the top, it releases and strikes the crystal as the gas is turned on. The impact creates a large voltage across the crystal, which flows into two wires. This voltage is high enough to make a spark between the wires, which ignites the gas. Piezo igniters are used on most gas furnaces and on stoves as well. Okay, so there's that one. So wild. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking back at all your comments here. So that's all the uses of the crystals. Now let's look at, what do I have next here? Okay, so next I want to get into quartz being used to store memory. Before I get into that, obviously, if you've ever seen Indiana Jones and the crystal skulls, I forget exactly what that particular Indiana Jones episode was on. I believe it was like Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skulls. Am I right? Comment it below. But obviously what they're saying in that one is that these like skulls were used to store all this data from like aliens or something like that. I haven't seen the movie in forever. But these crystal skulls are a real thing, and they've been found around the world. And supposedly Some people say there's 12 of them. A lot of people actually say that there's 13 of them. And these skulls have been so perfectly laser cut that even our technology today cannot cut them that perfect. So it's like, who made them? And obviously, people that have been able to tap into them say that apparently there is a ton of information stored in them. And obviously, quartz is what is used in our chips and circuit boards and things like that to store information. But apparently, if applied correctly, quartz can literally store like endless amounts of information. And, I've heard that scientists have created hard drives, of course, that can store endless amounts of information. So, when people are like talking about, oh, like these crystals are a new age thing, it's like, okay, literally so much information can be stored in crystals. If there was like a crystal that was from an ancient advanced civilization, like say these crystal skulls that have been found around the world, that no one knows how it's possible they could have been made by supposedly not advanced ancient civilizations. I mean, what is in them? What were they used for? Obviously, they were used to store information. So scientists are catching up to this now. Let me share this article with you about this. So this article is by Futurism Magazine. Memory that lasts forever. New Quartz coin can store 360 terabytes of data for 14 billion years. And right here, this is so cool. It has a little quartz disc that says it's the Holy Bible is in it, stored in it. That is wild. I mean, and look how small it is. So previously, and let me see when this article came out. So this came out in 2016. So we've had this technology for a very long time. Like scientists know about this, and I'm sure they've already looked into what is stored in the crystal skulls. I'm sure they have. And supposedly they don't know how to get the information out of these things, but I think they already know. They just don't want us to know. So, that's what's really interesting here. So previously we shared an amazing breakthrough, the ability to store data on slivers of quartz glass for 300 million years. Now, you don't need to worry about what will happen to your data after those 300 million years are up. Researchers have upped the storage and lifespan of quartz glass. Your data can now be stored for 14 billion years. Let's get some perspective. The Earth is 4.534 billion years old. The universe is 13.82 billion years old. With this in mind, your data is essentially safe forever, unless you live forever. Small storage solutions. Researchers at Southampton University in the UK have developed the technique of storing data digitally using laser light. 360 terabytes of information can fit on one sliver of nanostructured quartz. With this tech, we can store literally the whole of human history. Look at that. That is wild. Before I continue here, I would be worried, like, what if you put all this work into this and then you lost it? Like, where would they keep all of these? That's why, like, whoever made these crystal skulls, that's genius, because it's like, how can that be lost? I mean, obviously it can be buried and they've been dug up and everything, but that's not as easily lost as this little tiny coin. If I were to keep something that I would want to, like, stay around for billions of years with information stored on it, I would definitely put it on something like a giant crystal skull. That just makes a lot more sense. I mean, you would have to put this in something. If you were made in this small coin form, you'd have to put it in something that would be extremely, like, noticeable or something. So, that's interesting. Oh, the technique uses femtosecond laser pulses to write data. And remember, like we said earlier, lasers are made with quartz crystals. So it uses femtosecond laser pulses to write data in the 3D structure of quartz on the nanoscale. So, that's crazy. It's like literally all technology that it's like, how do you even explain how this works? Like, how do you write data with quartz onto another piece of quartz? That is just like so wild to wrap your mind around. And it's like there's so many uses of all these crystals. It's basically like every kind of technology you can think of is powered by quartz or some type of crystal. Anyway, the pulses create 3 layers of a nanostructured dots, each just microns above the other. The changes in the structure can be read by interrogating the sample with another pulse of light and recording the orientation of the waves after they pass through. Notably, this is referred to as a 5D storage device. These include the 3 dimensions of space, which are responsible for describing the physical location of the dot, and the 2 additional dimensions that are encoded by the polarity and intensity of the beam that creates the dot. The storage system, in addition to being long-lasting, is also pretty safe. The quartz can withstand up to 157 degrees Celsius, which is 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow, that's interesting. In the same way, the Pioneer plaque is meant to be a communication tool between us and any extraterrestrial life. These tiny storage systems could someday inform other beings, maybe our far, far, far off descendants, about Earth and humanity after we've long gone, aka the purpose of the crystal skulls. The research team has written a series of major works on the small glass disc. These are the works that will outlive generations. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Wait, hold up. I don't think I've even heard of that before. I'm gonna have to look into that later. Newton's Optics. Not really sure what that is either. The Magna Carta and the King James Bible. I really don't know what the first 2 are. I'll have to look into that. This new advance, it's interesting. It's like they have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I wonder what they actually have on there and who created it, because I feel like we're losing a lot of those in the current era, unfortunately. Anyway, going on. This new advance in storage makes the technique a genuine means of archiving vast quantities of information in perpetuity. We no longer have to fear the loss associated with tragedies like the Library of Alexandria. Oh, man. The Library of Alexandria, that was just such a crazy time in history. I feel like I must have been there around that time, because that's just a time that really stands out to me. And I've read a lot of books from, around when that happened. Obviously, that happened while Cleopatra was in power. A lot of people don't know that. Or it was either then or like right before she came into power. And, Alexandria was just like the most beautiful city ever of all time, like one of them, because literally the entire city, they were just so far advanced from where the rest of the world was in regards to just the way they handled things in society, like the way women were treated, and, like how, like, like divorce was handled, and just like and just like in general, like the whole civilization was just like so beautiful. Like there was like everything was colorful, apparently. Like there's just like everything was full of color, and there were like all the buildings and everything was gilded in silver and gold, and it was just probably one of the most beautiful cities of all time. And what's interesting about it is, obviously it was hit by a lot of major earthquakes, and most of it ended up going underwater. So the city of Alexandria we see today is nothing compared to what it used to be. It really makes me sad, honestly. It really does. I really feel connected with that time in history. I really feel I must have been there. So it looks like that's the rest of that article. Okay. We go back here. Okay, just reading your comments here. Renee Cruz says, accidentally clicked the wrong comment. Oh man, sorry. You guys commented and I lost it. Okay, Renee Cruz says 9 days, 6 hours, and 21 minutes and 41 seconds for the 180 days to full disclosure. You know, I heard there was a lot that was supposed to be dropped like on like June 5th or something like that, and it wasn't. So it's interesting. Zyphros, the starseed here, says Alexander the Great. Well, Alexander the Great, LO. I don't know what you mean by that, but you know, Alexander the Great, I've read a lot on him too, but he established Alexandria. At the time, you know, in Egypt, I believe it was Memphis was the original, it was the capital when Alexander the Great came there, and then he established Alexandria, and that became the new capital of Egypt. And when Cleopatra ran Egypt, or when she was the queen of Egypt, she actually conquered like the entire eastern seaboard. Pretty much every country that you see along the Mediterranean coastline was hers. And obviously, man, what was her guy's name? I can't think of the guy that she was with. I can't think of his name right now, but he conquered some of it and helped her conquer some of it, but it was mostly hers, but she really wanted to like rule it all with him. So it's really interesting. I'm getting a little off topic here. Oh, Apolla Hysteria says, I once was walking along a beach and I came across a talking skull and it told me it was very lonely and had nobody to live with. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Just trying to catch up on some of the comments here. Carl Freeman says, Apolla, come to Scandinavia. I show you many old sages and caves and crop circles, and we investigate them together. There's a very rare cave here which contains a temple under earth. Man, that sounds wild. That is awesome. I would love to check that out. I'm actually part Scandinavian. Actually, when I look at my ancestry test, it's like basically it says like 98 or 99% Northwestern European, and it shows like included in that is like a large percentage of it is like Irish, Scottish, and then Scandinavian. And then there's some like broadly Northwestern European, or that's the Scandinavian. And then I also, strangely, I have like 0.3% South Asian. And I've like felt really called to go to Tibet, and I feel like it might have something to do with that area. So I think that's really interesting. So going on here, what do I have next? Okay, so now we're going to talk about how crystals were used to power a spaceship. Now that I did like the whole background on basically what crystals are, how they're using technology. I mean, after listening to all this, you can basically say that any kind of advanced technology is powered by quartz crystals. So that being said, you know, basically anything that is being shot into space right now has quartz all over inside it, you know, to like send information back and forth between the circuits. And NASA actually has said that, you know, obviously they use quartz on the windows of the ships. That way they don't explode or melt. So, you know, already there is quartz being used all over inside any spaceships that are being sent out into space, because any advanced technology is powered by quartz crystals. I mean, that's just, you know, the basic thing of it. So, you know, I was in Star Trek earlier in the year, or last year it was, and, you know, Star Trek mentions a crystal that's used to power their spaceships called dilithium. So there's been all this talk coming out of scientists basically creating dilithium. So I'm going to read some of these articles here. I pulled a few up, And they're not technically saying that they have discovered it, but they're basically saying that they have. So we're going to read these here. And this is all like real scientific evidence in these articles. But, they're not sharing 100%. They're like, okay, we may have figured this out, but we don't know. So it's really interesting. Cynthia says, I like when you go off topic sometimes. Thank you. Okay, wait. I'm distracting myself again. Okay, dilithium. We're going to talk about this. Okay, let me pull this up here. I actually have a few different articles on this, so we're going to kind of explain what I found from different sources. It's interesting because they're trying to say like, oh, we might not have this, but we might. I think it just means that they have it because that's kind of how they release things. Like, actually, let me go back here for a second. So basically, before I read these articles, I just want to say that when it comes to the disclosure movement and how they're pushing full disclosure in ufology or soft disclosure, the way they go about it is I really feel it's more soft disclosure than full disclosure. And like an example of that would be like, them already knowing like that we are in contact with our government, say, the prime minister of the space administration for Israel and like the prime minister of defense for Canada, the ex-prime minister of defense for Canada, have both come out and said that the US government is working with at least 3 ET races. So, a good example of them pushing a soft disclosure would be them already having that information. By them, I mean like the government or the media or whatever. So like them already having the information of knowing that we are working with at least 3 ET races. And obviously, that being said, they probably have tons of advanced technology beyond anything we can comprehend. And, in all the underground bases around the world. But then they come out and they're like, oh, we found these microorganisms over here on Mars. And then they'll be like, maybe, in like 20 years or something. Hopefully not that long. Hopefully in like a year. I think it may be way sooner, actually. I'm starting to feel a little more confident that it may be sooner. But, and then they'll be like, hey, we found these like animals, these weird like mammal-like beings on this planet over here. And then they'll just kind of gradually just lay it all out, and it'll just be like a slow thing. But I think a lot of us are getting sick of that. Myself, anyway. I would like to say that I am getting sick of that. But so that's what I'm saying with this whole soft disclosure thing. So when they come out with these articles like this one I'm about to share here, and they're like, hey, scientists may have found an equivalent to like what dilithium is in Star Trek, which is used to power spaceships. And many articles are coming out about it. Maybe it's possible. They're basically saying, yeah, we already have it. We've had it for like 40 years, but we're trying to figure out, get you guys used to it, kind of program it in your heads and let you just like deal with it and sit on it for a little bit. And then later we'll be like, yeah, we've already been exploring planets with Star Trek like technology for like 40 years. But anyway, so let's get to this article here. I just had to get that little background there because I don't know. It kind of goes along with this. So dilithium. So dilithium crystals could power hypothetical Star Trek style warp drive. Getting to one of our nearest neighbors, Mars, would take 6 to 8 months using conventional spaceship engines. Ideas like warp drives are still theoretical and unlikely to be seen within our lifetimes. Whatever. Anyway, however, it might be possible to cut that trip to Mars down to as few as 3 months using a form of fusion fuel, quote-unquote dilithium crystals. Yep, just like Star Trek. And this was actually published in 2012, so this has been around for a while. Humanity has been in space for a while, but we really haven't managed to go very far. Carl Sagan once said that the surface of the Earth is the shore of the cosmic ocean, and recently we've waded a little way out, maybe ankle deep. That was in 1980, and we haven't risked testing the water any deeper since then. Obviously, this article came out in 2012, so it's a little behind. One of the main reasons for that, though, is that space is so frustratingly massive. Voyager 1 is the fastest man-made thing ever, but 10.5 miles per second is a piffling fraction of the speed of light. Even getting to one of our nearest neighbors, Mars, would take 6 to 8 months using conventional spaceship engines. Ideas like warp drives are still theoretical and unlikely to be seen within our lifetimes. Not. Anyway, however, it might be possible to cut that trip to Mars down to as few as 3 months using a form of fusion fuel, quote unquote, dilithium crystals. Yep, just like Star Trek. It's not quite the same. Of course, in the sci-fi series, the crystals are a rare substance, and the crew spend an inordinate amount of time searching for it, and their engines can use it to travel faster than the speed of light. This engine currently under development at the University of Huntsville by a team working in collaboration with Boeing, NASA, and the Oak Ridge National Laboratory would by comparison be about twice as fast as the best current technology. And keep in mind, this is in 2012. Imagine what they have now. According to technologists, General Electric's online tech magazine, this fusion reactor could be fueled by a few tons of deuterium, a heavy isotope of hydrogen, and lithium-6, a stable molecule of lithium, in a crystalline structure, hence the dilithium crystal claim. Technically, dilithium is a molecule with two covalently bonded lithium atoms, while lithium-6 features 6 bonded atoms, but we can forgive them for the temptation of using a little poetic license. When deuterium and lithium-6 are forced together under high pressure, they undergo a fusion reaction, a process which they're still trying to turn into a net producer of energy. While fusion isn't yet a visible fuel source, recent developments in the field seem to indicate that it can't be that far away. The engine, dubbed the Charger 1 pulse power generator, could be constructed in space along with the rest of the spaceship to avoid the tricky engineering difficulties of getting all that delicate fusion equipment up from the atmosphere. Just like the International Space Station. Once ready, the reactor would be engaged and millions of amps are pressed through super thin lithium wires and 100 nanosecond pulses. This could generate up to 3 terawatts of power. These wires vaporize into plasma, which is collapsed onto the core of deuterium and lithium-6, introducing a fusion reaction. The energy from that would be forced out the back of the ship in a so-called Z-pinch using a magnetic nozzle, a component which the team are also developing. And keep in mind, magnets are made from hematite, which is a naturally magnetic crystal. The engine's potential top speed, over 100,000 kilometers per... I'm sorry, I'm not sure what that means. That's roughly the same speed at which the Earth orbits the Sun. However, as Business Insider points out, it's likely that any commercial or scientific use of the technology will only be if the U.S. Army allows it, whatever, as the research is being conducted using equipment repurposed from military projects. Whatever. I'm going to skip over that part because that's annoying. The dilithium Star Trek was not merely a molecule with 2 atoms of lithium, though it was always described as its own element. And a periodic table seen in one episode listed it as having atomic weight 87, which would place it between rubidium and strontium if its atomic number followed normal convention. But we can probably assume that dilithium is a bit unusual and obeys laws of molecular physics as yet unknown to our primitive science. Hopefully, the astronauts trained to maintain and run these dilithium crystal fusion reactors will not suffer the ignominy of their colleagues asking that they give status reports in Scottish accents. even if it would be quite funny. Okay, so that's interesting. And I have a few articles about all of this. So let me pull up another one here. Okay. This is technically from MIT. So dilithium crystals. Dilithium is a precious crystal used in tactical warp drives. It is semi-permeable to both deuterium and anti-deuterium and provides a natural chamber for a controlled matter-antimatter reaction, focusing the energy so it can be harnessed and used for power. Dilithium is found in asteroids and moons and can be mined by placing mining stations on those moons, which are found to contain it, or prospecting platforms and freighters in similar asteroid belts. If you guys haven't seen, I had Brooks Agnew on my show recently. If you have not checked out that episode, please go ahead and do so, because he did a really great job of talking about mining asteroids. And he talked about it for this same method, which is fusion technology. He explained on the show that there's a certain mineral, I don't know if it's exactly dilithium, but there's a certain mineral on asteroids that can be used for nuclear fission technology, fusion technology, which would be used, could basically be used in place of fossil fuels. So that's really incredible. And he actually goes into detail on how exactly this can be done. And he does a very great job of it on the episode I did with him. So just look up, Brooks Agnew on my show with asteroid mining. He also came out with a book about this, which Brooks Agnew is an engineer, and he hosts his own radio show. So definitely go check out that episode if you would like to see that more in detail. He actually does a whole presentation on that episode of my show, and he really breaks down how exactly we can get out to asteroids, and it has a lot to do with getting a GPS system around the moon and being able to set up bases on the moon to start sending these ships out to asteroids to start the asteroid mining. And then once that is done, and I guarantee you that with Blue Origin by Jeff Bezos and SpaceX by Elon Musk, I guarantee the reason why all these billionaires want to go out into outer space is because of this. I don't think it's just about space travel, although I think that will be a huge moneymaker. Obviously, I think the main thing is they're trying to get to outer space, and also Virgin Galactic. Can't forget Richard Branson. They're all trying to get out there right now, and I guarantee you the reason being is they want to get out and start mining these asteroids, because the minerals on these asteroids, like Brooks Agnew said, they can be used for nuclear fusion technology. I forget what mineral he said, but maybe he's talking about this one here. So dilithium is found in asteroids and moons and can be mined by placing mining stations on the moons, which are found to contain it, or prospecting platforms and freighters in similar asteroid belts. It is extremely valuable, and each crystal must be kept track of. They are usually kept in storage on planets with shipyards and take up one full cargo box each. I'm not really sure where this article is from. Someone sent it to me earlier, because it sounds like they're already doing this in this article, but it says it's from MIT, so, who knows. Each prospecting freighter in an asteroid belt will produce dilithium crystals each turn to a maximum of 3 freighters. It will be stored in the freighter's hold until retrieved. Each small prospecting platform will add 1 to the output of 1 freighter. The current production values are... Okay, well, that's just kind of saying how much can be mined and kept in certain places. So that's just a general background of, obviously it can be mined. And like I said, Brooks Agnew did talk about this on my show. Please go back and check that out. It's really fascinating. And I have one more article here about dilithium. Let me pull this up here. Okay, so this one's by Insider. A new fusion engine could cut travel time to Mars down to 6 weeks. Brace yourselves. Researchers at the University of Huntsville in Alabama say they're using dilithium crystals in a new fusion impulse engine that could cut the travel time to Mars down to as little as 6 weeks, not the 6 months it takes now. Uh, this actually kind of looks like pretty much the same thing I just read earlier, so let me just skim through this. But obviously, what's interesting is this all came out in 2012. So all these articles I just read here all came out in 2012. And obviously, if that was all out in 2012, this was like way before a lot of our new spacefaring technology has like come out to the public anyway. So just think of what we actually have now. I mean, for all we know, they could already be sending people out there to mine asteroids. But, like I said, I really feel that is the main reason for them wanting to send all these billionaires trying to get out in outer space is they want to start mining these asteroids. Like, they're not going to stop at being billionaires. They want to be trillionaires, and that's the way to do it. And obviously, what's most important is once they're able to do that, if they're able to mine these minerals off these asteroids and bring it here, we can use that in place of fossil fuels. So all this climate change stuff will not be an issue anymore. Quote unquote climate change stuff. So, just catching up on your comments here. Zephyros the Starseed says space and time are connected. Yeah, that's really fascinating to me. I mean, basically traveling through space is the same thing as traveling through time. So if you're able to go through a wormhole, you could technically like go way in the future or way in the past or something like that. Speaking of the past, I just want to connect this back. So I've read all the articles I basically had so far for today's show, but I want to connect this back to the ancient past. So obviously the Anunnaki they came here supposedly. I don't know obviously a lot of people on here have probably heard about the Anunnaki and how they were an ancient race of aliens or ETs who supposedly came to our planet about 400,000 years ago. And supposedly they like spliced our genes or their genes with monkeys or early hominids on our planet and created humans to mine gold, because apparently their atmosphere, they needed to use gold particles in their atmosphere because of something that was going on with their atmosphere. Also, they needed gold to power their spaceships. And they went by Earth with their technology, which is probably the same as like the kind of technology we use these days to see what's under the ground, like ground penetrating laser radar technology. And they use that to see what kind of gold, how much gold we had on our planet. And obviously we had a lot. So they had to come here and use it to power their spaceships and to help repair their atmosphere. So I want to read a little article on that. And obviously, I've read a lot of Zecharia Sitchin's work, and obviously people have come out since then and had better translations than his original translations. But one thing they talk about often are firestones, and firestones are what they supposedly use to power their spaceships. It's kind of funny. I'm actually in a music video for the song Firestone by Kygo. So if you ever want to check out that song, it's actually a really cool song. And I'm in the middle of the music video at about 3 minutes. He like turns me around the crowd. I think it has like 280 million views or something like that now. But definitely go check that out. But the song is called Firestone. So that's actually is funny because I just happened to be reading and like researching about the Anunnaki and how, they came to our planet to mine gold and help genetically create humans. And then right during that time, I was putting this music video for Firestone, and then I started reading about firestones in the translations of the Sumerian tablets. And by the way, that's where you find all of Zecharia Sitchin's work, is basically the translated Sumerian tablets, which ancient Sumer was obviously an ancient civilization which was pretty much like one of the oldest civilizations that like scientists can really, or archaeologists can really talk about. I mean, obviously there's some that are way older, but there's a lot of evidence of them being like, like they're like one of the most ancient civilizations that have the most like evidence out. Which obviously the Sumerian tablets, I mean, and it goes into detail of like, different planets that were in all the different planets that are in our solar system, and obviously Planet X, and it actually goes into the exact like distance between all of our planets. And it's like, how could this like ancient civilization have known about all the planets that were in our solar system, and obviously the exact distance between all of these planets? Like, how would they know that if they didn't have some sort of technology, or if someone wasn't coming down and giving them this information? So it's really fascinating. And that's obviously in the kind of eastern, the Middle Eastern region is where this civilization was. So I'm going to read this article here now. This is actually from a mining magazine, but it's really interesting. It's actually a mining magazine, but they go into detail about how the Anunnaki mine gold. So mining is one of the oldest activities practiced by man. The oldest traces of the activity dating back more than 40,000 years. The exact origin of the occupation in terms and when and where mining started is not known, and is uncertainty that has led to the number of theories on the origins of the activity flourishing. While most theories are fairly educated assumptions based on archaeological evidence, there are a number of more fascinating theories that border on the realms of science fiction. One of the most popular alternative theories suggests that mining was first undertaken some 400,000 years ago by the Anunnaki, a race of alien miners who hailed from the planet Nibiru, and who incidentally are also credited with the creation of the human species on Earth. This theory has largely been expounded by the Azerbaijani-born American author and self-proclaimed scholar of ancient languages, Zecharia Sitchin, who wrote a number of controversial books proposing an explanation for the human origins involving ancient astronauts. The most popular of these books, which deals extensively with the subject of the origins of mining and the creation of mankind, is The 12th Planet, the first published in 1976. Sitchin's theory on the origins of mining and of mankind itself, which he states is based on ancient Sumerian tablets, largely goes as follows. According to the ancient Sumerian text, a 12th member of our solar system, if one is to include the sun and the moon and the dwarf planet Pluto, as well as the 8 planets, exists a planet called Nibiru, or planet of the crossing. This planet has an independent elongated elliptical orbit which passes through the planets Mars and Jupiter every 3,600 years. It was from this planet that the advanced civilization of the Anunnaki, a term that literally means those who from heaven to earth, came to Earth some 445,000 years ago. Their visit to Earth was no tourist expedition. The Anunnaki came specifically to exploit the planet's extensive gold resource. Sitchin states, on their planet Nibiru, the Anunnaki were facing a situation we on Earth may also face soon. Ecological deterioration was making life increasingly impossible. There was a need to protect their dwindling atmosphere, and the only solution seemed to suspend gold particles above it as a shield. And obviously, it's really interesting. Bill Gates has been talking about blocking out the sun, which I think is really stupid. But, obviously scientists have found that putting gold particles into the atmosphere, I don't know if that's how you describe it, as putting gold particles into the atmosphere, but basically some form of doing that can supposedly help restore the atmosphere. So this has kind of been proven since, these tablets have been translated. However, gold was an exceptionally rare metal on Nibiru, and so it was decided to exploit the Earth's more abundant gold resource. Thus, the Anunnaki launched Mission Earth to obtain it. Sitchin goes on to explain that at first the Anunnaki tried to obtain the precious metal effortlessly from the waters of the Persian Gulf. But as it is well known that extraction of the Earth's natural resources cannot be achieved without significant time and effort. Thus, when the Operation Persian Gulf failed, the Anunnaki embarked on toilsome mining operations in southern Africa, a region that was known to be host to extensive gold deposits. And if you look at Michael Tellinger's work, he has done tons of research on this. So I definitely recommend checking out his work if you want to know more about the Anunnaki gold mining in Africa. I mean, there's literally like thousands, I believe it's like hundreds of thousands of stone circles where the ancient mines were. And you can, it's probably going to tell us in here, so I'll just keep reading. For many thousands of years, the Anunnaki exploited the rich gold deposits in what's today South Africa, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Malawi, and Tanzania. However, some 300,000 years ago, the Anunnaki assigned to the African mines mutinied over their dissatisfaction with their working conditions. Sounds familiar? The Anunnaki were still in desperate need of gold, so in order to circumvent the dissatisfaction of the miners, it was decided to create a breed of miners who would effectively be slave workers on the southern African gold mines. Sitchin states, it was then that the chief scientist Enki, the chief medical officer Nin Hersag of the Anunnaki used genetic manipulation and its vitro fertilization techniques to create primitive workers, the first Homo sapiens to take over the backbreaking toil in the gold mines. According to Sitchin, Homo sapiens were made in the image or likeness of the Anunnaki, although it was not an achievement that resulted overnight. Working in a creation chamber, the essence of the blood of a young Anunnaki male was mixed with the egg of an earthborn female hominid. The fertilized egg was then implanted into the womb of a female Anunnaki in a process similar to modern-day vitro fertilization. Through trial and error, Enki's desired result was reached, and once perfected, the mass production of Homo sapiens took off. You know, what I think is interesting about all of this also, and I'm going to keep reading in a second here, but I just want to say, if you take a minute to, look at the ancient mythology, the mythologies of ancient Greece and ancient Egypt, and they talk a lot about these chimeras, or, half human, half animal beings, or also just like beings of these different animals that are kind of mixed together in weird ways, like hippogriffs and things like that, or like these like crazy beasts that like in the Iliad and the Odyssey, Odysseus is like going around finding these crazy beasts with his like crew as they're like sailing around the world. I really feel that there's some truth in those tales. And, that being said, when they talk about using this genetic splicing method that they had, DNA splicing, people were saying that this was all mythology and this was all crazy when Zecharia Sitchin came out with this. But actually, as of this moment, if you walk out on Hollywood Boulevard, I just passed this the other day, there are these giant billboards and posters all along one side of Hollywood Boulevard saying "Save the hybrids," and it has pictures of these babies that are like half baby, half mammal, and they're plastered all over the side of Hollywood Boulevard. And I believe it's some show out right now. I haven't seen it yet, but they actually have these like human animal hybrids that are being created now. Our scientists have caught up to what the Anunnaki were doing in these ancient times. So I think it's fair to say that they're probably messing around for fun and creating all these weird hybrids And then at one point, obviously they all leave. There's like this, kind of war on Earth, and then they all leave, and a cataclysm hits Earth, and they think most of the humans are going to die, and a lot of them remained, and a lot of these weird creatures remain too. And all these ancient mythologies of like Odysseus and the Iliad and the Odyssey, and the ancient Egyptian mythologies, a lot of them are basically the stories of these early humans fighting the remains of what remained of these weird creatures that had been left behind, and they were terrified of them. And there was actually, there's this certain place in Egypt. I can't remember. I think it was under the Temple of Karnak. It was somewhere. It was in the city of Karnak, somewhere around the Temple of Karnak or under the Temple of Karnak. I forget exactly where it was, but there's this area where obviously the Egyptians, it was really important to them to mummify everything, because they believed that if they mummified something, that meant it came back. So they mummified everything. They even mummified crocodiles because they thought, crocodiles were important. They mummified all the people, and they mummified their pets. They mummified everything because they believed that if it was mummified, it would be able to come back. But there's this place, which I believe it's under the Temple of Karnak, or I know is definitely in the city of Karnak. I think it may have been near the Avenue of the Sphinxes. They actually found the remains of these different creatures, and they thought it was like different creatures that had been thrown together. But it may have been these chimera type creatures, and the bones were crushed up, and it was poured over with this substance that was like asphalt. So it's really interesting. It's like, what were they doing here? Oh wow, sorry I didn't get this off screen share here. So let me finish reading this here. However, production of Homo sapiens could not continue indefinitely, and this new breed of primitive man was given the ability to procreate. Eventually, this new breed became so numerous that some were expelled from the Anunnaki city centers and gradually spread over the planet. And one of these centers would definitely be Göbekli Tepe. That is definitely one of the most important. That's what actually a lot of scientists are starting to agree, and especially Graham Hancock, that Göbekli Tepe is like basically what the Garden of Eden is. And it is shown that it was kind of like the area where these the Anunnaki started creating these different hybrids and messing around with the DNA of different beings and animals on Earth. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki eventually decided to leave Earth some 6,000 years ago. He states that ancient Sumerian inscriptions report that the human civilization in Sumer, Mesopotamia, was set up under the guidance of the Anunnaki gods, and human kingship was inaugurated to provide intermediaries between mankind and the Anunnaki. While Sitchin's theories may be considerably and incredibly far-fetched, and one may scoff at the idea that Homo sapiens were genetically engineered by aliens to mine gold to support the atmosphere of a far distant planet, his books have nevertheless sold millions of copies worldwide and have been translated in more than 25 languages. Oh, okay. So, that's that. And I really feel that crystals are important, and I think there's a lot there with crystals being used to power spaceships that we haven't gotten into yet. And obviously, I didn't go over in this article here, but in a lot of the Sumerian tablets, they do talk about these firestones, quote unquote, that are used to power spaceships. Also, obviously, there's a lot of evidence passed down that supposedly in Atlantis they used crystals to power everything. Like they had these crystal pyramids that were kind of used as like Tesla-like technology. Obviously, the pyramids of Giza were very much used for that. And that's been proven because they all have these intersecting underground rivers underneath them. And the way that they're created over these intersecting underground rivers, they're basically used as like Tesla coils and can be used to power things, basically like solar panels. Because the sides of all the pyramids, actually the Pyramid of Giza, the main one. The side of it is actually not 4-sided, it's actually 8-sided. And there's a slight indentation on each side, which the ratio of the indentation was actually used on the fields of solar panels outside Vegas to keep them from exploding. So it's kind of interesting. Thanks, Mr. DB Cooper, for the donation. And you're welcome. That's a really cool name, DB Cooper. You know, I actually just learned about DB Cooper from the show Loki. I've heard about him before, but I think I must have heard his story before, but I kind of forgot about it. But if you watch the new Netflix show Loki, it's actually really fascinating. I don't really watch TV very much, but on this show, there's only one episode out so far. I think they're putting one out every Wednesday. But I've always been like really obsessed with the idea of the time continuum and time like not being linear. And basically in this show, this one god who's like the god of mischief, and it's like a Marvel series thing. I forget what his name is, but he actually he like somehow does something where he goes against what he was predestined to do in time during like in the main timeline. And they talk about there being different timelines, and he goes against what he is supposed to be doing in the main timeline, what he's sort of like predestined to do. And at one point they actually go into his past and the different things he's done in this one room when they're talking about like what he was supposed to have done on this timeline and what he did wrong. And at one point he actually is like DB Cooper. So if you guys haven't heard the story of DB Cooper, he's actually this guy that I believe it was in like I think it was in the 60s. He went on a plane and he like somehow was able to get all this money. He said he had a bomb and he wasn't going to like leave unless he got all this money or something like that. And so he ends up, and he actually had a parachute with him. He jumped out of this plane with a parachute with like $200,000, which is like the modern day equivalent of like $1.2 million. And no one ever found him again. And that wasn't his real name. His real name wasn't DB Cooper. He actually like somehow got on the flight with this fake name, and no one ever found him. And they actually found some of the, I believe it was actually like banknotes, you know, because that's what they're using. I guess they were using that at that time as banknotes. And they found all these banknotes on the side of a river in Washington, because he disappeared over Washington. But, you know, no one ever actually found out what happened to him. So, yeah, it's interesting that your name is DB Cooper, because I just kind of learned about that. I thought it was really fascinating. All right. Well, I've been on here for about 2 hours now. So I guess I'll go ahead and sign off here. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Oh, yeah. DB Cooper says a kid found 5,000 of my notes. Are you the real DB Cooper? He could be alive now. He could very well still be alive. Oh, thanks for the new donation, VPXM. Really appreciate it. You know, it's been a lot of work getting the studio together, and I'm finally officially in here. I know I've said this a million times before, but you know, it's like before there was like an echo. There's just kind of all these issues, but finally officially in here, and I'm going to be doing my show here from now on. So if you have, you know, any advice for me or anything, just let me know, or anything you would like me to change here. Ben Chastain says there was a guy on his deathbed who claimed to be DB Cooper. Ooh, interesting. You know, and see, I want to start actually like editing shows and like doing like more like well thought out episodes instead of just me doing live things. Like that's my next step. Like I had to build the studio first, and then that's the next step. So if you guys would like to see me do any sort of topics, let me know in the comments, or, you know, comment below my videos after I post it. And, let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like me to talk about. I think I'm going to stay a little more focused on the ufology stuff, though. So, Mr. Fox's awesome tinfoil hat. Thanks. I actually made it while I was making my spaceship. I don't know if you heard the beginning of this show, but I actually made my spaceship here out of tinfoil, and I figured it worked since I'm a conspiracy realist. And I also made this hat for fun because I felt like it, but it doesn't fit over my headphones, so Baby Yoda is wearing it. It's kind of like a sorting hat. I don't know if you can see here, but it kind of has a face here. It's like the sorting hat from Harry Potter, but a conspiracy realist version. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to get off here. So I hope you guys all enjoyed tonight's show. I had a lot of fun with tonight's show, and I really like doing these topics kind of on my own. It's really fun and interesting to play around with you guys. So until next time on Apolla's Odyssey, and make sure you check out my show Thursday, the day after tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to be interviewing someone I'm speaking with at Camp Disclosure. I'm sorry, I forget what her name is right now, but I'm going to be talking to her about basically activating energy through creative dance. So it should be interesting, or creative movement, which I actually have experience with on my own because I took esoteric dance classes here in LA. My friend Ariane, she's like this very powerful, tapped in woman that she actually runs these like really wild meditation classes that are like open eye meditation classes, which is really interesting because most people don't think like meditating with their eyes open, but it's really interesting because you can actually kind of see the energy around you. And it's called open eye because you focus your left eye to the left eye of the person who's kind of leading you through it. Or well, you kind of lead each other if you both are kind of tapped in and know what you're doing. And like literally, like she's so powerful. When I do it with her, I can literally feel like time going like whoosh, whoosh, like around me at certain points. Like it's really interesting, and you can actually like see like the different past lives of people when you're looking at them if you like tap into it correctly. It's very interesting. But she actually is like this. She's been a dancer for many years and ran a esoteric kind of dance class where we kind of took some of these like energetic practices and like put it into like movement. So I did that I've done that on and off throughout my time living here in LA, and a lot of really interesting people are in that class. I might actually be doing it again soon just because it's nice to do. So yeah, so make sure you tune in to tomorrow's the day after tomorrow's show. And again, before I go, I will be selling my spears in an event here in LA this weekend. It's already sold out, but I guess I'll just let you guys know about it. And, just stay tuned for this because there will be another event. So this is Disclosure Fest, but there will be another event, which will actually be an entire 3-day event. And that will be in September. So, if you weren't able to make this event, the official 3-day Disclosure Fest event, which will have speakers like Laura Eisenhower and many other incredible people. I believe Billy Carson. I'm not sure who's all on the lineup. I may be on the lineup. I'm not really sure yet. But the whole 3-day event will be in September. But this weekend, I'll actually be selling my Shaman spears for the first time in person in a very long time. So I'm really excited about that. And if you would like a Shaman spear and you're not going to this event, please go ahead and purchase one now before I sell out, because I will definitely probably be selling out this event. I normally do. So make sure if you want a Shaman spear from the Odyssey collection, which is a very special collection, I never make any two spears the same, and I never make any collections the same. This collection has all silver staves and is kind of alien inspired. So once I sell this one, I'm probably not going to make a collection like this again. So if you like these ones, please go ahead and get them, because I will most definitely probably be selling out this weekend. All right, so please keep in mind, I am always doing my show every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific now, and I've kind of really kept on with that. So I haven't really strayed from that too much. I sometimes, if I'm actually like physically on a plane, like I still do it when I'm traveling, but if I'm like physically on a plane, sometimes I can't do that. So yeah, but I've pretty much done the show pretty consistently every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. So keep that in mind, and I hope to catch you on the next show. So thanks for being here, everyone, and until next time on Apollo's Odyssey. Over and out. Oh, thanks, Stevie Cooper. Thanks for the donation. All right, see you, everyone. Bye.